Sequels. The video game industry is littered with the bloody things. I mean, you can't even walk into a game store nowadays without having the most recent Call of Assassins 4, Advanced Battlefield 2K15 Revelation shoved all in your eye holes. But, even with that said, I still do love me some sequels. So, anyway, here's my top 10 games that I think deserve a sequel, no matter how unlikely it may be that they will ever get released. Although, with such long-awaited titles such as Battlefront 3 coming out next year, Killer Instinct out last year, and even Kingdom Hearts 3 seeing the light of day, maybe, just maybe, one of these titles will get released. Just maybe. One day?
Probably fucking not.
Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of racing games, but there's something about the F-Zero series I just absolutely adore. And I find it really weird that for one of Nintendo's biggest franchises, the last game released on the series was F-Zero GX, which came out over 11 years ago. With the crazy tracks and the weird-ass characters and the really cool cars, it's hard to see why F-Zero was such a popular game. And of course, how can you forget how ridiculous the speeds were in this game? You could reach like 1,000 miles per hour and still boost through that. Honestly, it was an achievement for me if the game didn't end up like this.
Too bad, you lost your machine.
Oh, Tim Schafer, what goes on in that beautiful bearded mind of yours? Whether you love or hate Tim Schafer, you gotta admit, whenever you buy a game that his name is attached to, you're in for something different. Something against the norm, something that's kind of out there and kind of weird. Something like Psychonauts. Psychonauts is a 3D platformer, and I love 3D platformers, but in this one you get to use psychic powers as your weapons and also use them to solve puzzles throughout the game. So what's not to love? Want to set birds on fire with your mind? Bam, there you go. Feel like going inside a dog's mind to see what he sees you as? Bam, you're a fire hydrant. And then, of course, you set more things on fire. What more do you need? Lots of fun to be had. Each level is incredibly different and deranged from each other because you're jumping in and out of other people's minds. One minute you can be inside a fractured milkman's conspiracy nut mind where everything's a government spy out to get you, to then being a massive monster destroying a city of lungfish, while being inside the mind of a massive monster lungfish. And then from there you can go into a neon-drenched alley where you fight a Mexican wrestler. And that's just a couple of levels. I want a sequel just alone to see what they'll come up with. I mean, what the hell could they do next? You know, I do really like certain FPSs, but I miss the ones that never took themselves too seriously and weren't all modern military and brown and greyish. I miss the more weirder, surreal FPSs like Time Splitters. Not only did this game have a great story with genuinely funny dialogue, it also had one of the best multiplayers ever with a multitude of characters, guns and maps to choose from and whatever the hell that thing is. Really, I believe they should just make another game just for the online multiplayer alone. It'd be amazing! With loads of people across the world playing online at the same time, running around as monkeys and gingerbread men and snowmen and dinosaurs and bears and, well, that. That alone makes this game pretty great. Oh, and of course you have the challenges. Look, any game that allows me to play curling with monkeys, have an arena deathmatch with zombies, oh, and then go race a remote-controlled fucking cat, deserves more than enough to make a comeback. The most annoying thing about this is, Time Splitters 4 was an actual thing. Before Free Radical went bust, they were making a new Time Splitters game, but now Time Splitters is in the hand of Crytek UK. So, Crytek, please, 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 please make another game. Just for the cat racing at least. Look, despite it not being the best-selling console at the moment, and let's be honest, it has a distinct lack of games, the Vita I don't think is actually that bad of a console, and it has produced one of my favourite games of the past few years, and that's, of course, Gravity Rush. There's just something really refreshing about playing Gravity Rush, with its beautiful cel-shaded visuals and really great soundtrack, and there is something just instantly entertaining about defying gravity and just flying all over the place. I would literally spend hours doing nothing but flying over from city to city because it was just so bloody delightful. And they did leave a few questions unanswered from the story, so it is open for a sequel, and this is just one gaming universe I would love to return to. Mainly so I can just waste more time pointlessly flying around for ages. There are a lot of zombie games out in the market nowadays, and with zombie games left, right and centre, it's easy to miss out a few good ones. In my opinion, one of the more underrated titles of most recent years has been Zombie U. Stupid name aside, it was a genuinely great survival horror game that had a lot of interesting things going for it. The game had a great and gloomy atmosphere which constantly had you on edge, with ammunition and weapons being a very rare find and the constant threat of death looming over you. Death having real consequences in this game. Not only does your character die, but then you wake up as a new survivor with none of your items and have to hunt down your rotting corpse and then kill that again just to get all your items back. And if that isn't bleak enough for you, it's set in jolly good old England, where we are mostly known for our beautiful weather and our sunny dispositions. I am going to sound incredibly biased saying this, but with the game being based in London, it brings a mundane feel to it which makes everything a lot more creepier. For example, there is nothing more normal and boring than a British housing estate, but set in a zombie apocalypse that has a horrible sense of reality to it. The game also made great use of the Wii U gamepad, not using it only as a backpack, where you use your gamepad screen to go through your inventory in real time, while on the TV screen you can see your character get slowly creeped up by a zombie. Jesus fucking Christ, why can't I do this quicker? But not only that, it also works as a sonar, so you can tell when you're surrounded by zombies and you're about to get screwed over. Oh, would you look at that? Oh, I'm sure I'll be just fine. And I'm dead. Although I do like this game, I did have a few issues with it. Number one being the melee combat was very clunky. But hey, they can change that in the sequel, right? Oh. Shit. Oh, Pokemon. I dread to think of the hours I spent in my childhood and, well, now, playing you. There must have been just years wasted on Pokemon Red alone. Nowadays, the Pokemon series just seems to have countless spin-offs. I mean, you've got Pokemon Pinball, Pokemon Puzzle, Pokemon Stadium, Pokemon Rumble, Pokemon Ranger, Pokemon Dash, Pokemon Conquest, Pokemon Coliseum, Pokemon Typing Adventure, a load of bloody mystery dungeons, and hey you bloody Pikachu. Yet, out of all of these games, and the ones I probably missed, there's only one game I really want to see get a sequel. If you had told me an on-the-rails Pokemon photography simulator would be a really fun game, I would have been surprised too, but something about Pokemon Snap works, and it's ripe for a sequel. It really confuses me why Nintendo has not made this game yet. I mean, it's one of the most popular Pokemon spin-offs, and you have two consoles that are just perfect for the concept. The 3DS itself is a 3D console which you can use to have augmented reality stuff in the game to take photos of Pokemon. Then you have the Wii U, which is just a huge tablet, which would be perfect for pointing at the screen and taking photos of Pokemon. I mean, this just seems like a no-brainer to me, really. I mean, Nintendo, you made 2 Poke Park games, and they were terrible. No sequel to this. And considering that there's over 700 Pokemon now, and 6 generations of Pokemon games, I don't think they'll have a problem finding content for a new Pokemon Snap. As much as I love Naughty Dog's other franchises such as The Last of Us and Uncharted and of course Crash Bandicoot, I still hold a special place in my heart for the Jak series. It was one of the first games I actually bought that I had no idea about because I just saw it in a magazine and I thought, this looks awesome, I need to play this. So I saved up for a couple of months to get enough money, finally got enough money, bought it, and now it's one of my favourite game series. The game was great because it was a 3D platformer that was basically open world and had no loading times between going from level to level. You could hijack people's flying machines and get chased by the Crimson Guard or just cruise around on your hoverboard. It was like GTA but with less decapitations and blood, which was, well, perfect for a 10-year-old me. Also, I'm pretty sure this is the only game series I can think of that has actually fun sewer levels. Although they've already had a trilogy, I still want more Jak and Daxter, and hopefully one day I will get that elusive 4th game. Super Nintendo had a wealth of amazing RPG games, but if I had to choose my favourite, it would have to be Chrono Trigger. Widely renowned by many people as one of the best, if not the best, RPG of all time. All you have to do is play it and you can instantly see why Chrono Trigger is regarded as a classic. It had a complex and interesting story, it had great characters, it had a glorious soundtrack, and, needless to say, a fantastic battle system. I mean, what more can you ask from an RPG? But since its original release in 1995, we haven't heard anything out of the Chrono Trigger series. Well, there was Chrono Cross, but that was more of a spin-off than a sequel, really. The game would be so easy to make a sequel for as well. I mean, the game's based around time travel. So many things you can do with that. It's time travel. Maybe if Square Enix stop pumping out Final Fantasy sequels and remakes and what have you, maybe we'll see a sequel to Chrono Trigger. Ha, who am I kidding? That's never going to stop happening. Here's to Final Fantasy 15 and Type 0 coming out next year. Woo! There are so many Star Wars games that range from the very, very good to the shockingly bad. I'm looking at you, Connect Star Wars. Say what you want about those games, when they nailed it, they frickin' nailed it. And when all the stars aligned, you get a game like Knights of the Old Republic. Exploring the part of the Star Wars universe that was set way, way before Jar Jar Binks was even a thing, Knights of the Old Republic is able to craft a deeply interesting story, and one I would like to see continue, and preferably not in MMO form. The universe of Star Wars still has loads of history and lore to explore. I mean, there's stories that are just begging to be made into games. And it's needless to say that the gameplay was great as well. And to be able to choose your own path, Sith or Jedi, was excellent, and had plenty of choices throughout the game that actually had an impact on the game's story and what your character would become. A moral system that BioWare would later implement in two of its more popular franchises, Dragon Age and, of course, Mass Effect. And as we all know, there is a new Star Wars coming out next year, so it seems like the perfect time to announce a new Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. And it has been said that BioWare is working on a new, untitled Star Wars game, but just to let you know, many boffins died to bring us this information. There seems to be some kind of 2D platformer renaissance going on as of late, with loads of 2D Mario games coming out and Rayman Legends and Origins and Donkey Kong Country Returns coming to mind as a few revived classics. But not only that, we have original titles like Super Meat Boy and Cave Story and Fez making 2D platformers more popular than ever. But as much as I like 2D platformers, I love 3D platformers more and the collectathon games. I would love more than anything for those games to come back. With Spyros, your Crash Bandicoots, yes, even Ty the Tasmanian Tiger. Two have already appeared on this list with the Jack series and Psychonauts. But when I say Crash Bandicoot and Spyro, I mean PS1 era kind of style games, not late 2000s Crash Bandicoot and Skylanders Spyro. If we have the 2D platformers that have that old school feel while also being brand new, why can't we have that with the 3D platformers as well? To keep the feeling of playing a rare Nintendo 64 collectathon game, and presenting it for modern consoles. But obviously I can't choose 3D platformers as my number one because, well, there's too many games. But if I had to choose one specific 3D platformer to be my number one choice, it's gonna have to be Banjo-Kazooie. I know, it's not exactly an original choice for number one. I mean, a lot of other people have put Banjo-Kazooie as their number one for a sequel they would like to see. But there's a reason that so many people have done it, is because Banjo-Kazooie is awesome and there needs to be another game. I'm talking pure 3D platformer though, no nuts and bolts crap, alright? I'm talking just interesting worlds, cool power-ups, funny dialogue, and collecting goddamn nodes, jingos and jiggies. Do that and you can have all my money, Microsoft. Just make Banjo Free a reality.